Wait patiently by the riverbank, as in the Chinese proverb, for his corpse to float by. I wanted to see him die and bury him and pat the earth with my bare hands. I say this as a loving son.
Great writing.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff. Beth, what was your second title and movie?
My second book movie is based on the book The Lost City of the Sea by David Grann. It's a gripping, true account of Colonel Percy Harrison Fawcett, who disappeared in the Amazon in 1925 looking for El Dorado, what he called the City of Z. But it's not just that. It's a captivating character study that tells of Fawcett's life from childhood through to his disappearance. And it's also about Grann, the author, doing armchair research and also going on an actual trek to follow in Fawcett's footsteps. And it's about the hundreds of people who went in search of Fawcett after he disappeared to try to rescue him.
This seems very different from your first one, nonfiction. Why this one?
Well, I had been to the Amazon, and I'd read a lot of Amazon books before, but I didn't want to read books like this one because I was afraid that they were going to scare the bejesus out of me. So I
Really
thought I'd
big
wait.
bugs, piranhas, the whole, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I really am glad I read it, but I also am really glad that I waited because those bugs just would have freaked me out.
Yeah.
So I don't think the movie's out.
The movie is not out, and I can't tell you when it's going to be out. It's going to be out this year. It's coming out in Brazil in October, but they haven't set a release date for the United States. And I want to tell you what I know about it. It's being billed as an action-adventure movie, so I don't think it's going to have any of the stuff about Grann doing armchair research looking to where Fawcett actually went. And it's not going to have the background on the other Amazon explorers. It's not going to have discussion of anthropology or history, all of which I found fascinating. And it won't have Grann's sense of humor. This is how he describes himself. Remember, he's going on a trek in the Amazon. Okay? I don't like to camp. I have a terrible sense of direction. I like newspapers, takeout food, and I like air conditioning on high.
So what did you personally like about this book?
I really enjoyed how it was written and its tone. You go back and forth between Fawcett flogging through the jungle and Grann sleuthing. He has wonderful phrases and quotes like, "Notwithstanding his inveterate obstinacy, the ass is an excellent and sober little beast." And if you'll
Nice.
indulge me in one more quote, this is not from that book, it's from another book on my list called Skeletons on the Sahara by, it's another Dean King. "Since Homer's days, such accounts of distant voyages, especially voyages gone bad, have mesmerized their audiences, reawakening them from the domestic slumber to the world's wonder, its raging elements, its exotic and unyielding geography, its isolated people. The best of these accounts demonstrates anew man's ingenuity in the face of adversity, his will to survive, or hers, and in the end, his intense desire to go home again." I also want to mention the pacing. It's not a roller coaster ride, it doesn't go up and down, and it's not a water slide going straight down in one direction. But it has a relentless energy, like Fawcett himself, going, going, going.
So you had some other books on your list that you thought were kind of similar to this?
Yeah, actually one of the books you suggested, Turn Right at Machu Picchu by
yes.
Mark Adams.
I love that.
Which has a similar tone of humor and good writing, and it's a tale of an explorer and a writer who follows him 40 years later. There was also a fiction book by Ann Patchett, State of Wonder. It reads like an adventure novel, where the Amazon is another character which she describes with great accuracy.
Is it me again?
It is you.
It's time for you.
Let me tell you about a movie that's like the
yes.
the city, the Lost City of
course.
Z. There's a movie that we will be getting into the library. It's called Embrace of the Serpent. It centers on Kamarakate, who's an enigmatic Amazon shaman who guides two Western scientists, one German and one American, actually who lived in Waltham and taught at Harvard, who really did exist, The director studied those two Westerners' writing and drew from them to inform his film. They explored in the Amazon 20 years apart. Both in the movie are searching for a rare plant that possesses healing powers. So it all draws the Amazon and exploring together in this wonderful movie. So again, my list, The Lost City of Z by David Grann.
Okay.
So Jackie, what's your second cop book about?
So my second cop book is The Secret Place by Tana French. She's one of my favorite authors. Inside the O'Briens was about a guy with a disease who happens to be a cop. So for my second book, I wanted to pick a title where his job was really key to the plot. And I ended up choosing the fifth book by Tana French. This is her Dublin Murder Squad series. They're all, you could read them out of order. You might lose some character development, but they are essentially standalones. All of her books should be on my list, and they basically are. I think she creates people, and particularly cops, that are very, very real.
So how does she go about making these people real to you?
Part of the way that she does it, which I just alluded to, is that if you read them out of order, you might lose some of the development, is she draws her characters out. They're so complex, and she draws them out so slowly that she's really starting to flesh them out in the previous book. So she has someone as a secondary character, and then in the next book they become the main character. One character in particular, a detective named Frank, has appeared, I think, in some capacity in almost all the books, I think except for maybe the first one. And he's one of my favorite characters of all time. You see him as a young man, you see him as a husband, a father, or the rival of another officer, as a boss, as an enemy, as a friend. You see him from his own perspective, you see him from the perspective of other cops and from other people in his family. He features in this particular book as a protective father who happens to also be a police officer. And I chose this particular book in her series, so I think, as I said, they all should be included, because it showed Frank in particular in a more vulnerable light than past books, because it involved his daughter, and also because the other two cops in the book have the potential to be really stereotyped. It's the rookie cop and the woman cop. And they both, the rookie cop, he's trying to prove himself, and the woman has a kind of a chip on her shoulder, which is a little stereotypical, but she really makes them believable and real. They fit the mold, but they're much more than just two-dimensional.
Yeah.
And the younger male cop he's the main character in this one, and the woman cop is actually going to feature in her next book coming out in August, The Trespasser. I best be on hold for it. I'm looking forward to finding out her backstory.
Yeah, she's one of my favorite authors too, and not just the police characters were well done, but all of the characters, I think, wouldn't you agree, are really...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
She does the same with the kids in this book. There's a bunch of teenage girls that are kind of central to this plot, and while the technology has changed, there's a lot of texting in this book. The dynamics between the girls at this age, it could have been my childhood, it could have been yours. I mean, it's the same.
Yeah.
She does a really amazing job capturing these two rival cliques, that their gestures, their slang, their roles, who's the leader, who's the follower, who might squeal. It was just really well done on that front as well.
Is there stuff besides the character?
Yeah.
Character stuff?
The place, there is a plot. It's well done. But it's basically a murder mystery. Someone is murdered, and a year later new evidence comes to light, which reignites the investigation. But anything else to recommend it in terms of other than the character, I would definitely say The Place. It's extremely well done here. The private school where this takes place almost becomes a character itself, and there's sort of a little bit of magical realism, and it takes place on the grounds mostly, and I'm not into that, and that's okay if you're not. It's very easy to swallow for a skeptic, but so don't let it deter you. It can kind of be interpreted in a very non-threatening way. Lastly, in addition to the character in The Place, is the pace. It's a fast read in this kind of everything now world. It captures that culture, that texting, hurry up. The entire book takes place in the span of 24 hours, and I think I probably read it that quickly. I could not put it down.
Like that.
Yeah.
So I would say by all means, please read this book. Start with her first one, In the Woods, and keep going. And this was The Secret Place by Tana French.
Yes, and I think that's a really incredibly good example of literary crime, just as
Very
the
much.
Yes.
Benjamin
Oh,
Black
like the Benjamin
you
Black
mentioned
stuff.
earlier,
Black, yeah.
absolutely. I'm going to talk about my second list, which is the Adrenaline List, which is all about mysteries and suspense and thrillers. And the author I chose to write about is Thomas Perry, who for some reason is incredibly underread. The book I'm going to talk about is 40 Thieves. I don't know why he's underread. He's an incredible author. He has two series that I know about. One is called The Butcher Boy. He's an assassin who's a very flawed and interesting human being. And also a Jane Whitelaw series, which starts with it's Vanishing Act. And what I like about that is she's someone who takes the vulnerable and saves them. She gives them a new life. So she's sort of like a guide, an Indian guide, as you will, who does this. And what's great about it is that it takes place in a variety of different places, so the place itself also becomes a character. But 40 Thieves is a good one for someone to begin with because it just has so many of the wonderful elements that he does well.
So why this one in particular? What was it that drew you?
Well, as I said, he's a gem, and I thought he should get more circulations in the library. And so I thought
And
I'll
I've
talk
been
about
pushing
him.
it.
There you go. But the other thing is, I have a thing for assassins, and I couldn't help myself. And art or jewelry heists, and this combined them both. So what could I do? I had to pick it up. And in 40 Thieves, there's a husband and wife team, two of them. They're being pitted against one another in this sort of adagio dance of violence, and it's escalating as we speak, as you read the book. Sid and Ronnie Abel are private detectives. They used to be cops, and they're looking for the murderer of one James Ballantyne. At the same time, they're being hunted by these psychotic, and I would go so far as to say sociopathic assassins, and their names are Ed and Nicole Hoyt. And they are trying to find them to prevent them from finding out who killed James Ballantyne, but we never know who has sent them on this mission until about the last 100 pages. You find out everything. So I'm not going to say any more about the plot because you really want to have these aha moments for yourself. Yeah. It's a terrific, fast read. Thomas Perry does suspense and caper like nobody else. You think that you have the chessboard all set up. You know what's going to happen, and he makes a move you don't even see coming. Great characters, incredible pacing, does light and dark really well. And characters that you think are the villains turn out to be even more interesting than the people who are the heroes. So I would definitely say Thomas Perry's 40 Thieves is a book that you might want to pick up for your summer read. And I'm going to conclude by saying thank you for joining us. We have many, many lists at the library waiting for you. We didn't have the time to talk about those today, but come into the library and we will talk to you about them then. So thank you.